Hello, my friends. Hello, my friends. This is Dr. Deepak Chopra. And in our conversations on the cutting edge of science and spirituality, it is my great honor and privilege today to have as my guest one of the most eminent philosophers of our time and also one of the great artists of our time, musicians of our time, a prodigy, a child prodigy, a very distinguished, what can I say, author, philosopher, spiritual genius, uh, my dear friend, mentor, and guide, Ervin Laszlo. So, Ervin, thank you for joining me today.
Deepak, I could say everything you said now, I could say about you. I consider you my mentor, and it's my pleasure and privilege to talk with you.
So, Erwin, let's start a little because we have a big audience that follows these conversations, and of course, you're very well known. But I'd like to introduce you to a larger audience today. Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your life. Where you were born, where you went to school, early experiences, and where we are now. That's most important for
Well,
me.
I want to put it into a capsule form very shortly. It was an unusual career kind. I was born in Hungary,
Which year, Erwin?
1932,
1932.
June 12.
Okay.
And the war came into Hungary, the Second World War, from 39 and 40, and then 44 came the Nazi occupation. I was discovered at the age of 5, more or less, since my mother was a piano teacher. Discovered that I had a talent for music, for piano. Started playing concerts when I was 9 with the Budapest Symphony Orchestra. And then when the war came, of course, then we just managed to be deported to one of the concentration camps, thanks to a very eminent musician who saved my life, practically, Ernst von Dohnányi. And then I left Hungary when I was 15. I was entered, even officially, part of a team of artists from Hungary. I was the youngest member who could enter the Geneva International Music Competition because the age limit was 15. It was from 15 to 35 people could enter. So I was just 15 then. I entered, and I had, by a stroke of good fortune, I believe, I got the grand prize. And then I went on to Paris and to New York and lived in America. I don't want to go into details, but then for a long while, I played concerts all over the world. And then until I decided that my interest in philosophy and in science is outweighed also my interest in performing in public, which is essentially what a concert pianist has to do all the time. So then I decided to devote my life to finding out perhaps those kind of experiences and impressions that I had while playing music, a feeling of unity, a feeling of oneness, and a feeling of all-embracing love. When you play music and everything goes well, and the public is with you, the audience is with you, and other musicians with whom you are playing share this experience. It's an experience of supreme oneness and coherence. And that's what I was looking for. I thought the world must have some element of this coherence. If you can feel it like that in music and in other forms of art, I think all forms of art convey such a feeling. So then I went and started an academic career. I published some books, got invited to Yale University to lecture. And then eventually I caught up in my formal qualifications as well, because I had only a degree in music. When I was 15 years old, I was the youngest pianist, youngest musician altogether in the Franz Liszt Academy in Hungary to get an artist diploma. But that artist diploma, of course, doesn't really qualify you to teach philosophy and science in a university. So eventually I got invited to the Sorbonne to present a thesis. I did that. I got formally accepted then for the state doctorate. Then I went on to a career in philosophy. I don't know if I want to keep going on. We might want to talk about other things than myself.
I want the story, and then we can talk. But
okay. Then, while I was teaching philosophy at the State University of New York and organizing meetings also, I got a call from Princeton, from Dick Falk from the University of Princeton, who was a political scientist, asked me to come and lecture at the Woodrow Wilson School in Princeton. And I said, why? What should I do? I'm a philosopher and I'm formerly a musician. Woodrow Wilson School is for political scientists. He said, never mind. I know you have developed what you call this new paradigm, a new approach, a new system for politics, for relations between public and private entities and between states. And I want you to discuss that. So I went to Princeton. I presented seminars at the Woodrow Wilson School. It was a great experience. I learned from it as much or even more than I could give, but that's the right way to do it. And then this book that came from out of that, it was already my 10th or 12th book, was called a new approach to the future. And this was published in the late 70s. And it caught the attention of the president of the Club of Rome, who at the time was a major kind of a think tank worldwide. And I was asked by the Club of Rome, through its president Aurelio Peccei, to prepare a report to the club, an international report on the new horizons for human species, for cooperation and progress on the it's a very great task, of course, a very great challenge. But to meet it, I was introduced then to the head of the United Nations Institutes for Training and Research, UNITAR, and the head of the institute, Davidson Nicol, invited me to come to the institute to direct the programs of the institute, which are programs for the Secretary General of the United Nations on cooperation. And I did that, and from UNITAR, I could then have the contacts that were necessary to live up to this great challenge of providing a report to the Club of Rome on the new horizons of human community. This is how it was then published, New Horizons of Human Community, a global community. So that launched me on another tangent and another career, if you like, from concert pianist, to classical standard philosopher, and now to public servant in the United Nations, and then to carrying on this task of trying to understand how we could relate better to each other through the nations of the world, how we could create a community by building on some insights that we get from the scientists, from sciences, from systems theory. Systems theory that is often was associated with my name as creating the evolutionary systems theory and the systems which are part of an evolutionary process. And everything, all complex systems are part of that process, but we have to understand them as such, so that we are all part of an evolutionary wave, as it were, that is moving toward what we could now describe as increasing oneness and coherence, which is mapped by an increasing sensation, a deeper and deeper sensation of belonging and oneness, and ultimately of love. And this is what I was searching for, and I have been searching for all these many years. See?
So, Ervin, I have followed you now for several years. I've followed several of your books. I've followed your whole explanation of systems theory, radical change, oneness, and we are now in the midst of a major conversation in the world about what is fundamental reality. And given your experience now and all your forays into the world of consciousness, systems theory, what creates human happiness, what is the nature of evolution. Right now, the cutting edge arguments in science or debates are about, of course, what is fundamental reality, what is the universe made of, And number two, what is the biological basis of consciousness? And, as I've explored your work and looked at some of the work that we are doing as a foundation, and also some conversations with some very radical thinkers like Don Hoffman and others who are making the case against reality, they are basically all saying that consciousness is the only reality, and that everything else that we experience as physical form, our body, the physical universe, these are species-specific modification of consciousness that we call human experience, mind, body, and the physical world are all basically modified expressions in time of a fundamental consciousness which is not in time, which is primary, which is fundamental, which is irreducible, which is without cause, which is infinite, which is formless, which, of course, great spiritual traditions have couched in their own language, like Ein Sof or Allah or Brahman or non-local existence or Akashic field. And I know you've spoken a lot about Akashic field, you've written a book about it. So I want to cut to the chase and say, where are you right now in your understanding and explanation of what is fundamental reality? What is the Akashic field that you talk about? Can you explain that?
In 5 words or less. Well, I think this world is not made up of little bits of what we call matter moving around in space and time. This world is a field, and it's a resonant field. It's a field that can vibrate, can produce frequencies, and that creates interacting sets of vibrations, creating waves that are complex, and they are in phase and they work together. These waves can be conceived as consciousness, as mind, because the entire universe, this resonant field, can be conceived also as the substance, as the constitution of reality, of a giant mind. It can be seen like that, but it's not necessarily seen to see it like that, because we can also see this field as a universal Akashic field, or a universal information field, where everything is energy and everything is information, and then there is nothing which we would call matter, not sort of in the classical sense, matter, nothing hard and enduring and indivisible. What there is informed energy, energy in certain ways, creating phases, creating frequencies, creating phenomena. And these phenomena, when they reach us, then we can construct them as things in the world, as also as minds or consciousness in the world. But ultimately, this is an informational universe, it's an informed universe and an informing universe. The closest we can get to it, you mentioned Brahman and you mentioned the great spiritual leaders, the closest we can get to it now in the new science is David Bohm's idea of the implicate and the explicate order. The implicate order, where everything is given at one time, is the deeper level that Plato was talking about, the deeper dimension. It's what the Hindu seers were saying 3,000 years ago as the Akashic field, as the Akasha, the dimension is, which I think you know better than anybody else, I think, in your own culture. But I think this great resonant field is a cosmic consciousness, but it's also a field of information and energy. So how we build it, how we look at it, using our own concepts. The field, the cosmos, is beyond grasping by any limited set of concepts. It's something that we can only approximate by trying to pull it down to the level where we can call it this or call it that. But ultimately, it's a unity, it's a wholeness, of which a key characteristic to my mind, and to me this is very important, the key characteristic is coherence. That it's evolution in a given direction from the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago, as they nowadays we believe. It was the beginning of this evolutionary process, the build-up from inert gases to little bits and pieces of quarks and quanta, creating atoms and creating molecules and crystals and organisms and ecologies and galaxies. This started at that time, and it's going forth. It's going on now, and we are part of it. And we are that curious part. There are probably other beings like us at that level of consciousness, but on Earth at least we have the highest, most articulate level of consciousness. Not the only consciousness, but the most articulate one, in which we can see this process as engulfing, embedding everything. It's a process toward the higher levels of coherence, higher levels of unity. It is not different from what in the Eastern great traditions called the Brahman, called the Tao, called the universal field. I mean, both in the East and West, we have given these various names to it. But ultimately, all this is moving toward an integration, a higher level of unity, which we can only dimly perceive as the self-realization of a cosmic consciousness. In that respect, I would agree with that, you see. But this process has a physical aspect, has a chemical, biological aspect, has an ecological aspect. It has a human aspect as well. It is all part of it. We are all evolving together toward higher levels of unity. That's what we have been told by the great sages for thousands of years. And I think when you look at the new quantum sciences, quantum physics, mistakenly called quantum mechanics, it's not mechanical, of course, at all, but the quantum theories, a quantum concept of the world, we see a seamless, unitary approach where all things interact with all other things. All things actually in a higher and deeper sense are all other things. We are holograms in a holographic universe. It's another metaphor that we can use. But we are part of this process, and we better not forget it. I think the great spiritual leaders knew it, know it. The great artists know it intuitively. And sensitive people, deep thinking and feeling people know it as well. Because we can feel this world. Alfred North Whitehead, you know, the great philosopher, I think you both admire very much, talked about prehension. You prehend the rest of the world. We are each actual entities that prehend the whole world. And we apprehend it by feeling. We feel the world. Our perceptions are a form of feeling, you see. But deep down, every quantum feels every other quantum. Every proton feels the neutron in the atomic nucleus, and so on.
So, Ervin, you raise a lot of very important issues right now. And one of the issues that you raise is actually the whole issue of what current philosophers of science are talking about. And that is a topic addressed to as naive realism. And so, whilst we admire the big giants of science, including Einstein, the current conversation is saying that even Einstein was a naive realist because he believed that there was an observer-independent world, that, you know, when he made the statements, I don't believe the moon would still exist if no one was looking at it. He raised that question many times. Does the moon exist if no one is looking at it? And of course, the moon you and I look at is a human moon. It's not a crocodile moon or the moon of a horseshoe crab. It's a human experience. And naive realism basically says that the physical world exists as it is perceived by the five human senses, even in the absence of an observer, any observer. The physical universe exists as observed by the five human senses, which is less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum is what we experience, and we call it reality. This is naive realism, that the physical universe would continue to exist even if there was no sentient being to observe it. It would exist as it is observed by the five human senses. So, even as I think of this, naive realism seems out, and, we have to go beyond. Now, having said that, Einstein did say once or twice, I believe some quotes that I found, that in the new physics, there's no room for both matter and the field, because the field is the only reality. Now, of course, he was not referring to the field as a consciousness field. He was referring to what we today call the electromagnetic field, or the components of the electromagnetic field, including the strong and weak interactions. And he was trying to unify that with gravity, which he was unable to, which is still the problem today with the unified field theorists. So the Indian philosophers, though, Kashmir Shaivism and also Vedanta, they acknowledge that there's a physical field, or a subtle field, or a mind field. But then they go even beyond that, and they say the ultimate field is actually the field of consciousness, which knows itself as what we call the universe. So Brahman and Brahmand go together. Brahman is the field, and Brahmand is the physical universe, which is evolving as a modification of that field. So if you read the Upanishads and you read the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, Krishna representing the field and Arjuna representing the human mind, Krishna actually says to Arjuna, I am the field and I am the knower of the field. So not only I am the field, I'm the knower of the field. The Sanskrit word for the field is kshetra. Kshetra means the field. And then kshetragya, I am the knower of the field. So when you know yourself as the field, the Sanskrit expression of that is aham brahmasmi. I am the universe. It's the ultimate liberation from every single modified experience, including the modified experience which we call the human ego, body, mind. And what we call the physical universe, including quarks, including force fields, including gravity, including electromagnetism, including subatomic particles, all of that, photons, these are human constructs for modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness for a very limited bandwidth of perceptual activity. That, in fact, the entire universe that we call the universe, the physical universe, is totally a human construct, and it's not even real. That's what it's called, Jagat Mithya. Jagat Mithya means world appearance that is constantly evolving. And even as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at this issue of New Scientist magazine. It says evolution, the changing face of our greatest theory of nature, suggesting that even evolution is driven by consciousness. So it's pretty close to what you were saying, but I'd like you to basically respond to this whole idea of naive realism, because even quarks and fields and evolutionary theories are human creations, just like democracy or money or latitude or longitude or Greenwich Mean Time. These are human constructs. Why not Botswana Mean Time or Bangladesh Mean Time? These are human constructs that we agree to, and we call it the physical world.
Let me quote Einstein in one quotation in this regard. He said, in science, we seek the simplest possible scheme that can tie together the observed facts. I think that's very profound. It doesn't say that the scheme that by which we tie together the observed facts is absolute reality, or that it exists independently of us. It's the scheme that can tie together the facts, because by tying them together, we can explain them. Otherwise, we have a chaos, as of a series of undisclosed, incoherent phenomena. the universe, if we can conceptualize it at all, can only be conceptualized as a coherent unity of all its elements. So this is obviously likewise a human construct, but it's the most likely human construct. And probably that's the best we can do. I think those theories that claim that everything would cease to exist the moment when you don't observe it, I think that's an extrapolation from a quantum theory that I think will eventually be surpassed. I think we'll understand a little more of the nature of the universe, and we don't have to make it entirely observer dependent. The observer is part of the universe. And when the observer observes anything, observes the universe. Because another good metaphor, another good way conceptualizing it is the hologram. The information of the whole, which constitutes the whole, is in every part. So we can look at an atom, you can look at yourself or at another person, and you'll find the universe, because the information is there. Information is not in an unfolded way, in an enfolded way, as an implicate order. I think the idea of implicate order and the idea of constructing the world are on the right track, basically. I don't see how we can go beyond that. We try to understand, and if we try to understand, we have to say we are using concepts to understand. By concepts, we are always breaking apart a seamless unity. Otherwise, the whole can only be understood by an awful look, looking with deep awe at the world around us. But as soon as you say anything about it, you're broken it apart. So with that limitation, we have to understand, we have to do the best we can. The best we can is to understand the cosmos.
What I really enjoyed about what you said just now is
Yeah.
that every observer is the universe looking at itself in a
Yes.
different way. That's beautiful.
The universe, the simplest, most basic concept is a psychophysical resonance field. It's both physical from the point of view of an external observer and the mind or consciousness as from the point of view of being part of it, or any particle. We are all part of it, obviously. And we are all a holographic part, so we contain the whole. And our consciousness is the consciousness of the cosmos. These are far out concepts, as you know, but they're not as far out as some of the new ideas based on what I think are temporary theories in quantum physics. They're trying to make do, trying to understand through equations the phenomena that we observe, which is so complex and so mind-boggling, actually. But we don't need to go as far as making everything dependent for its very existence. I have this level of naive realism. I would say the universe exists because we exist. And you and I, we are the universe. And altogether, the totality of the information that is in us is the universe. And we are not separate from the universe. It's all a total self-evolving, coherent field.
So, Ervin, we could have many conversations, and I hope that we will. But what you have said is so important right now that I just have one more question, and then we should organize another conversation in the near future.
Very, really
My
good.
question is, why is this understanding of cosmic consciousness and psychophysical resonant fields and the future of human evolution, why is this conversation so pertinent right now? And why should we um, embrace this deeper understanding of reality? Um, why is it important? After all, you and I are kind of a little blip in cosmic evolution. If there's all this 13.8 billion years of evolution, millions of people have gone before us, wondering about the same things, articulating. We are still building up on their wisdom and trying to understand mathematics and the connection mathematics and nature and music and resonance. Why is this important? Why are we having this discussion right now in this particular time? in the history of human evolution?
Okay.
That would be my last question.
Any bigger question? Let me try to tackle that. I think this concept, this open concept of understanding the whole as a resonant evolving field of each other apart, is important because it shows that what is a functional part of this, what is a contributing part to the evolution, is an in-phase, coherent, seamlessly joined element of a seamlessly joined whole. In other words, you and I, we are part of a universe that evolves, that self-evolves. The universe, I don't believe that I'm willing to say that I don't believe that there's an outside force of the universe that makes it evolve. The universe evolves. How it was created, I don't know, I don't think we can know. But once the implicate order is in being, once the unified field is in being, we can know that we are part of it. And we know that this evolutionary trend, which plays out in the explicate order, based on the deeper connections that are in the deeper level, on the akasha level, of the implicate order, this whole process is moving toward higher level of complexity and coherence, higher levels of integration. When we lose our way, we are separating ourselves off, we are cutting ourselves away from the whole that evolves. We are becoming incoherent because we don't realize that coherence is something that's built into us. The universe could not have come into being as we observe it now, even if we just observe a tiny little part. Whatever we observe over the universe has coherence. We wouldn't be able to observe it otherwise. And what we can put together from this observation is that the universe is not passive. It has an evolutionary impetus. It has a vector, and it's moving toward higher and higher levels of coherence. When we lose our way, as we can now see that we have lost, in many respects, we have lost our way, when we are living through a global crisis, then the orientation, the direction that we get is toward embracing connections, interactions, integration, oneness. Through understanding and science, through a higher awe, sense of awe in religion and spirituality, and through more love in our everyday human world. You see. But we have to get back to that. We have to know that we are coherence-oriented beings, and our society is a coherence-oriented society. Temporarily interludes can intervene. But if we let those run away with us, it will be the end of this bit of coherence on this planet, which we call life. And that would be a great pity, because this is remarkably evolved already. As far as we know of the universe, there may be others like us, and maybe others much more evolved than us. But still, the great bulk of phenomena in this universe seems to be less evolved than life on this planet.
So, Ervin, would you say that what you call coherence and quantum entanglement and non-local correlation and synchronicity and inseparability and love as the ultimate truth at the heart of creation are all the same thing? You know, the Rabindranath Tagore once said that I exist is a perpetual surprise. That if you're not perpetually surprised by existence, your humanity is incomplete. And then he went on to say, love is not a mere emotion or a sentiment, it's the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. Is that coherence?
Yes. Max Planck said that when he says I spent 40 years looking at the most concrete element of physical reality, the atom. And he said one thing is he said there is no such thing as matter in the universe. The other thing that he said, that the way this universe is built, the way quanta are pulled together to make atoms and then make molecules, etc., presuppose a higher consciousness in the universe. Einstein was saying these things also. We can't do away with that. But that consciousness is part of us, It's in us, we are in it, and together we evolve. But we ought to know in which direction we evolve, because we can make mistakes. Let me just add one last element to this before ending. Our relatively evolved consciousness is a great boon, is a great benefit, but also a great danger. Because when you have a simpler levels of consciousness, as in the other elements of the living world, you don't make mistakes. If you keep making mistakes, you become extinct. We keep making mistakes and we keep ourselves alive, and we ruin our environment in the process. And we ruin ourselves in the process. We can make mistakes. And now the way to correct the mistakes is to recognize deep down in this universe, what is it that's driving this universe? What is it that makes it what it is? Not chance. Chance alone, I think, doesn't exist. There is something that moves it. I call it, in my work, I call it an attractor, a holotropic attractor, an attractor that moves elements of this whole universal process into greater levels of harmony with each other. The old idea of harmony, of coherence, which is in all the religions, I think it's a necessary presupposition. Otherwise, we simply don't understand what goes on, nor can we understand how to go on. But with this supposition, is that the universe is moving to higher levels of coherence, higher levels of integration. And as we are part of it, we have guidance. We need that guidance more than we did ever before.
And music and mathematics are part of that harmony, right?
Absolutely. It's a way that we find it. And once we live that through anything, for mathematics or music, I was living it through performing music, that I think it's, you understand that deep down, if you're talking about reality, that is reality.
Ervin, this has been a delightful conversation. We'll have more of these. I'd like to title this Cosmic Consciousness, Resonant Psychophysical Fields and the Future of Planetary Evolution, if that's okay with you, a conversation with Ervin Laszlo.
It's my honor and delight, and it's a rare privilege to be able to talk about such important things to such important person.
We shall do it again. Thank you and God bless.
Do it again, yes. Bye-bye.
Carolyn, are we all set?
Yes, we are. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.